Welcome back to the Bully Pulpit Podcast, where two pastors, an ethics professor, and a political operative discuss news and politics from a Christian and conservative perspective. The Bully Pulpit is a podcast of Knowing Jesus Ministries, whose mission is to proclaim timeless truths in every sphere of life. Fellows, how we doing?
Well, check this out. I'm company man in my NAM polo. Walker's got his bow tie on. Tietzel's clearly home, and you're in journey gear. Everyone's on brand.
On brand. Surprised Tietzel don't have a suit on, though.
Hello, fellow kids. It's cool to be on video for lots of reasons, not the least of which is I can finally start paying attention to what's going on behind each of you. And there's clearly a look here that we all have with the bookshelf thing.
Yes, but we clearly love to read, or at least want people to think we read.
Yeah, there's all the books that Andrew wrote that no one read. The thing that really caught my eye today is that a Back to the Future DeLorean?
Yes, it's a DeLorean.
Doc Brown on it.
It's Doc Brown and the DeLorean, yes.
All right, have you all heard the fan theory, the greatest fan theory of all time, that Back to the Future 1 and The Goonies took place on the same day?
I love that.
Saturday, October 26th, 1985.
Yes, I love that.
Keep going.
All right, so we know the date that happened in Back to the Future because, of course, they plug it into the DeLorean and they go back and forth. You got to do a little more investigative work in The Goonies, but there's like a newspaper at one point that has a specific date that shows when the guys broke out of prison, and then they talk about how for some reason, it had to be the last Saturday after a specific Thursday because of that newspaper, and that is the same date as is in Back to the Future.
And isn't there a tie to who directed, or at least that Spielberg was involved in both, right? Was Spielberg involved in Goonies?
Oh, I don't know.
No clue.
That is very
interesting.
Interesting, it is.
Well, Doc Brown said that day must have some sort of something on the time continuation. There was something special going on back then.
The bigger question I have is why is Hollywood producing movies like now or in the last 20 years that maintain this surreal connection to a particular time in American pop culture? There's something about the Goonies and Back to the Future that I feel like Hollywood hasn't replicated as far as these kind of classic period pieces that define a generation. You know what I'm saying?
I do.
Racist or something to do that? I don't know, that's my guess.
There's not enough color. There's not enough people of color in these old 80s movies, apparently. Here's the thing to think about that's really interesting about Hollywood right now. There is so much lack of creativity and originality that most of the originality that used to exist with stories and plots and kind of just unique, pictures has really kind of moved over into television, and the movie, the TV series has kind of taken that role. Movies are just nothing but just sequels and remakes at this point. There's very few original movies anymore.
And I think the few exceptions to I totally agree that television has overtaken film as the dominant medium. There's so much good TV you can't even keep track of.
So much.
And I never go to the movies unless it's to take my kids to see something silly. With very few exceptions, and I don't know if y'all have seen yet the Project Hail Mary.
Yep.
So I've heard great things about it. I have not seen it.
And you just wonder, why don't they just do that more?
Where's more of that?
It's family friendly, fun. It's a movie that both kids and adults can enjoy. It's Hollywood is capable of producing stuff that isn't terrible and pure smut. It's one of those things where it's hey guys, do you want more of my money? Then make stuff like this. I would love to give you more of my money. I love.
Don't be stupid.
Personally, I have.
So.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was saying, you got Nate Bargatze coming out with his first film. He's playing.
Really? I missed that.
Yeah,
cool.
It's coming out really soon.
Although I don't know, I love Nate Bargatze.
Is he going to be the bozo dad? Is that going to be the role?
That's the whole premise. The entire premise is a dad literally can't watch his kids for a week without calamity. Literally their house falling down.
Yeah, I don't love that. And I love him.
Yeah. There's something about like the listless, hapless father figure in American like culture that like for whatever reason we can't get beyond. Like I used to really despise Everybody Loves Raymond, because Raymond was this like passive, floating through life figure with like, you know, he basically let his wife lead the home. He was constantly trying to stay in her good graces, and there's just something about a paradigm of communicating. That's how we think of men in our culture.
Yep. We got Maverick 19 coming out, which I'm sure will be good, because Tom Cruise actually understands how to make a movie that's entertaining and not woke and stupid. What about this Michael Jackson music biop? Are y'all interested in that?
Is that allowed? Like,
how about the Hulk Hogan documentary on Netflix?
If anyone goes to it, would they admit it?
I heard somebody say that apparently
they do not bring up any. They don't bring up any of the things.
Apparently, it ends with the release of Bad, and somebody was like, doing a biopic of Michael Jackson that ends with Bad is like doing a biopic of O.J. Simpson that ends with the Heisman Trophy.
That's great. Hey, Hulk Hogan documentary out.
I saw that.
I haven't watched it yet, but I'll definitely be.
What's that rated?
It's on Netflix. So you're good. Yeah. Well, maybe. Maybe.
Running wild, man. Come on.
Usually.
Well, yeah. So if you're interested in more movie takes from the Bully Pulpit guys, you should check out the Bully Circle. If you haven't heard about Bully Circle, it is a platform where the four of us are on there. There's other folks that have been joining. We talk about things that we're keeping an eye on. It's actually where we're going to release some special content and guest episodes. You'll get it there at the Bully Circle first before everybody else gets it later. And our next episode that we're doing with guests, it's already lined up, is with Natasha Crane and Alyssa Childers. So we're really excited about having them on. And we're looking at lining up some other folks as well. So one, if you're interested in hearing more guest episodes, you should join the Bully Circle. You'll get to hear all the hot takes and see more flag updates from Dean. So
and Reed, how do they do that?
Yeah, good question. Sorry. If you go to our social media feed, or if you go into the show notes, either on the YouTube description or on Apple Podcasts, you'll see a link there to join the Bully Circle. And you can subscribe there. And yeah, it's good stuff. It's going to keep growing and expanding and adding to. So, all right, boys.
1.21 gigawatts. Here we go.
1.21 gigawatts. Off we go. If we could go into a time machine and go back to the Allie, Beth, Stuckey, David French interview that took place, what do you think should have been done different? What do you think went well? Did you guys all watch the interview that Allie, Beth, Stuckey did with David French? Yes or no?
No, I did not.
Did you refuse on principle?
It violates the Tietzel rule.
Yes, I have a rule. I have a firm standing rule. I don't engage with David French content. And I have to remind you all every time we talk about it on this podcast.
Well,
every time we bring up David, every time we bring up French, Teach will just go la 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 la.
Yeah, I'm going to give a shout out to French.
I refuse to recognize this.
I do.
The Tietzel rule.
Well, it's like if a David French speaks in the forest and no one is around to hear it, doesn't matter.
I'm always here for a new Tietzel rule. Honestly, I love a good Tietzel rule. Dean, what about you? Did you watch it?
Yeah, I said I want to give a shout out to French for doing it.
Yeah,
First of all, those things just don't happen anymore. I mean, Allie, Beth too, but those things just don't happen anymore. I'm not a big debate in terms of watching debate guys. Like, I'm not like, I just don't care about that kind of stuff often. But I just thought it was significant that it actually happened.
I did too.
So we've already had one sigh from Tietzel. Let's keep count of those. We're at one.
Okay. Yes.
I watched it. I did a tweet on it on Saturday that kind of accidentally blew up, and then the Daily Wire asked me to expand that into a full article. So wrote a full article on the subject.
Give us the high level of what you wrote about.
So, well, I don't know if I give you one high level comment. A couple observations. Or no, there is one high level. That in like classical rhetorical theory, you need what's called logos, pathos, and ethos. Many of us might be familiar with that. it became very clear that the dominant rhetorical devices that Allie Beth Stuckey and David French rely upon are just very different rhetorical devices.
You're such a nerd.
David French,
very nerdy, but I think you're correct.
I know, I'm wearing the bow tie. David French increasingly has migrated to relying upon pathos, which is on
his
emotion
feeling
and sentiment. Which it's worth stressing, like that's a different David French than was the David French of like 2014, 2015, who was like owning the libs, spitting blowtorch on National Review.
Was he really? I mean, would you really say he was a blowtorch?
In pre-2016, David French was like my favorite political commentator.
I would say one of the voices. That's what I would argue.
His evangelical bona fides, his comments on like religious liberty, LGBT, abortion, they were dynamite.
His advocacy for Mitt Romney's presidential campaign.
Okay, and this is where Tito inserts. Okay. Well, that's where you went wrong,
I do
Andrew.
appreciate that Andrew starts by calling him pathological. I do think there's something.
A lot of
So, but that brings us back to Allie Beth Stuckey, who I think tends to rely more on what you would call logos, which is an emphasis on reason and fact. And you think about how, like, ourselves as human beings are governed, we're constantly warring against pathos and logos. That's kind of the two dominant spectrums that war against each other. Well, the other dynamic is this dynamic called ethos, which means you have the credibility to speak to the issue. And the reason that I think Allie Beth Stuckey came out ahead on this topic is because all of the objections that David French had raised against her, I think she way more effectively rebutted than he was able to rebut the complaints that she had made against him. So let me frame this up and where this came out through, where it came through most evident. The toxic empathy debate.
Yep.
Okay, anyone who actually follows what that argument is about, as Allie Beth is writing about it, as Joe Rigney is talking about it, it's not talking about being thoughtless and careless towards others.
That's right. It's not anti-compassion.
It's about allowing.
Yeah, that's putting words in your mouth.
It's about allowing your emotions to be held hostage to lies and damaging realities simply because someone has strong emotions. Okay, well, what happens in their debate? She calls him out. She says, you dedicated a whole column to my conversations on empathy.
Yeah.
And so then they proceeded to like actually explain what they mean by empathy. And guess what? It turns out they actually agree. Well, if they actually agree, then why did David French write a column dismissing Allie Beth's position on this?
Right.
Well, it's because I think there's a motivation to want to depict someone like Allie Beth Stuckey as thoughtless and
there's an agenda, sure.
And she held his feet to the carpet on that.
Oh, no, objectively. I mean, I do want to be fair-minded. Objectively, I don't know of a single topic where he got the substantively better of her in the conversation.
Yeah. Now, here's what I would say, though, and this is, I think you'll appreciate what I mean by this. At least it was good to hear him articulate a justification for his views and his points. And to the degree that he did, I could understand where he was coming from, though I disagreed with him, right? Like, at least he had a coherency of why he does or says what he does and lands where he lands. It's just really bad. Like, I just don't align with it. But I at least appreciated that he was trying to be consistent with his position. The problem is, and this is where Allie Beth put her finger in it and just kept jabbing it there, is his justification for promoting a Kamala Harris vote for president.
That was the worst.
He had nothing he could really stand on.
What is his argument?
Yeah.
His argument is that on
foreign policy,
on matters of global scale, such as foreign policy,
national security,
as Kamala Harris is on everything else, she understands the stakes of modern day global affairs better than Donald Trump.
Because she was vice president?
Well, because
she's not Donald Trump.
She has, according to him, a more muscular, realist foreign policy than what the Trump administration has.
Well, let's also talk about the significance right now of Allie Beth Stuckey, like in our kind of moment. She's such an important voice. I don't know her personally. I met her briefly, shook her hand at DeSantis's inaugural ball, like really quick. I didn't know she was going to be there. I just saw her, I was like, hey, and said hello to her. She was very kind. But I just think her voice, man, I'm thankful that especially women in our church listen to her.
Yes.
Or follow her on Instagram, share her stories. Also, let's get in Reed's time machine here. What was it really crazy in 2000? What was it, 12? To be pro Romney? That wasn't crazy in 2012 to want him to be the president,
especially compared to Barack Obama.
It wasn't crazy to resign yourself to voting for him.
Yeah.
Given the other one, it was a little crazy to like be on the front end building evangelicals for Mitt Romney and arguing that there was no superior candidate in a Republican primary.
Remember who was the other candidates for the main candidates in the primary? I just don't
Rick
remember.
Santorum very nearly won that race.
Yeah.
You had Rick Perry, who was in that field famously. So I can't remember some of the other ones, but it's not like
was it the bonders full of women that took you off of him, Tietzel?
Or I'll bet you $10,000 that line.
I mean, look, Mitt Romney. I don't know. He seems like a perfectly nice guy, but his like nothing about Mitt Romney was compelling to anyone on policy, on charisma, on anything. And it was plain to see he was not going to fight. He was a continuation of a very establishment, very like corporatized version of politics. And
sure, I'm just saying that French is not all the other things French has done and who has become. Sadly, I'm just saying I don't think being pro Romney in 2012 was.
No, but I'll just say this: like you can draw a straight line, I think, from the way he approached engaging in that election and his views of Mitt Romney to his current disposition.
Okay, that's fair.
As Andrew just said, is like this defense of essentially globalism and a neoconservative view of America's place in the world.
And arguably because of his lack of fight, it's also why people finally turned the page on that kind of conservative and eventually voted for Donald Trump. I would argue.
But
that's true.
It gets to the debate question at hand when she asked him, like, why did you actually use your platform to argue for why you were going to vote for Kamala Harris? She's like, you purport to be a conservative. She supports X, Y, and Z, which is absolutely contradictory to conservatism. He makes this argument that I think everyone that I was reading commentary on suggested it was the weakest part of his presentation. And she basically says, you could have just not voted, or you could have just written someone in, but instead you chose to use your platform to promote someone who supports policies that are in complete contradiction to Scripture. The other thing that really struck me is towards the end, they got talking about James Tallarico.
Yes.
And how he was championing him as...
And Andrew, you should remind people who that
James
is.
Tallarico, he is a state senator in Texas who is running for the United States Senate. He's a very, very progressive Christian, well, so-called Christian. And the whole, so David French writes this column saying, James Tallarico may not hold to a lot of Orthodox beliefs, but he sure seems like he's a practicing Christian because of his emphasis on neighborliness and love and compassion.
Good God.
That's the pathos kind of angle again.
That's the pathos, right? The problem is he holds two positions completely at odds with biblical Christianity, historic Christianity, and creedal Christianity. And David French says towards the end, I'm just not going to call him not a Christian.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's the problem with that. Aside from what the Bible says about how you would define what a Christian is, number one, is why is it that someone like a Friedrich Nietzsche, who is, one of the most historic, famous atheists in history, could rightfully distinguish what was a Christian from a non-Christian?
Yep.
Right. He would say, if you are a Christian, you hold to these doctrines and these beliefs. I reject all of those doctrines. I'm not a Christian. But yet, why can't David French do what Friedrich Nietzsche would do.
Yeah.
Which is to simply say, let's just call balls and strikes. If your beliefs are consistent with Christianity, you're a Christian. If they're inconsistent with Christianity, you're not a Christian.
Yeah,
Well,
he's
and Nietzsche
fine
even
saying
went on to
Trump's
say,
not. He's fine saying Trump's not a Christian,
no, he's totally fine saying that.
right? And so, which fine, but you're telling
Right.
me Tallarico
No,
you
that's
can't say
exactly
he's
right. I
not.
hadn't thought of that.
But what
come
Nietzsche
on.
went on to say, though, too, he went even further and essentially was like, why are you keeping the husk of Christianity around if you're not going to hold the doctrine? And that's the problem, is you don't need Tallarico's Christianity. It's just a skin suit. So but she got the better of him on that as well, in terms of just being rational and biblical and logical. And he just seemed to revert to kind of emotional appeals is really kind of what it felt like. And it's like, well, he's nice, so I'm just not going to call him. I'm just going to not say he's not a Christian. I'm just not going to say it. It's like,
I do want to say, as much as I am not interested in what David French has to say, I do love that we're giving Allie Beth kudos for what she did.
Yes.
And there's this particular line of criticism that I want to make sure I'm not associated with of this, which is to say, it's actually to borrow these kind of lefty ideas and terms and to criticize someone like Allie Beth for so-called platforming of someone that we don't like or someone we don't disagree with. And I think it's nonsense. We do this, those of us who are out here with podcasts or writing or whatever it might be, because we're interested in the world of ideas. Yep. We think we have better ones, and we're not afraid to compete in the world of ideas with truth because we think it's good for people.
Yep.
And confronting bad ideas with better ones in the public square is like the nut of what it is that we are engaged in here. That's policy, that's politics, that's preaching, that's ministry. And the idea that David French wouldn't have a platform, wouldn't be spreading ideas around if someone like Allie Beth didn't interview him is crazy. Like, I can ignore him, but a lot of other people, he writes for the New York Times. I mean, this guy is all over the place, and we need to go toe to toe with people like that. I don't have to listen to it,
this is why Dean's comment, I think, is so important. Like, this is why I say kudos to French, because guys, where do we see these kind of conversations actually ever happening? Like, there's just a bunch of yelling on X. Nobody sits down like this who are that opposed to each other.
Well, and that came through when they were talking about empathy. They ended up agreeing 80% of the time on the terminology and what actually was effective empathy.
Because they had to pin down terms.
Ineffective empathy. Like, the number of times they actually agreed through the podcast was actually astonishing to me, because at one point David French says, I'm appalled at many Christians' defense of Donald Trump. And Allie Beth Stuckey says, well, I'm not going to defend the indefensible. So
right.
don't pin all of Donald Trump's bad characteristics and his vices on me. I didn't vote for the vices. I'm having to make a calculated decision between Party A and Party B. Party A hates my values a lot less, even if they aren't entirely aligned with me. And they're not going out of their way to do things to promote evil. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And
Yep.
may not be standing for the most wholesome family values as far as the character is concerned. So I just found there was a helpful clearing the field of like false dichotomies in all of this.
Yeah. Well, I would say for our listeners, if you want a good example, though, of how to watch on display two professing Christians and two people who I think are genuine believers. I think David French is a genuine brother in the Lord. I think he's wrong on a lot of stuff. And obviously I believe Allie Beth is a genuine sister in Christ, okay? You get to watch on display two people who are deploying their theological and their political theology apparatus into the public square to talk about ideas. And you see a very clear contrast. And I think every Christian has to make the determination of which approach and which way of thinking do I think is most biblical? Do I think is most aligned with the Christian worldview? And I personally think you would walk away more aligned with Allie Beth. But this is what was on display in that interview. That contrast was on display.
Yeah, because think of what's happening right now. I see this a lot, like in our little tribe of the kind of hard SBC right. If they're questioned about anything or get pushback, they don't actually answer the question. They attack you personally. They'll bring back something you said 10 years ago, or who are you to this? They don't actually answer the question. Like, it never happens. It's just attack, attack, attack. To see two people who in an online world would probably just crush each other. Because you've written articles about Allie Beth, right? I think misrepresenting her views on empathy, that's as we mentioned. But they're actually sitting down and having a conversation and not holding back either. I mean, they're like being truthful with each other. Like, she is telling him where he's wrong. He's making his claim. Like, he's challenging her on this. It really is, I think, a breath of fresh air.
Yeah. For everybody who hasn't watched it, except for Tietzel, because we know he's still not going to go watch it, go check out Allie Beth's channel. You can look it up on YouTube. Her show is called Relatable, and you'll find this interaction between her and David French. Okay, let's talk about some political news here. There was this week a vote in Virginia about redistricting some of their zones or whatever it might be, and all kinds of talk has come out of this because they essentially went from being a swing state where I believe Democrats won by 5 points for voting for a redistricting that essentially just changed the political map completely. Tietzel, can you give listeners help explain what happened here?
Well, we need Tietzel to be the one that chimes in on this. Before he does, though, I'd like to publicly blame him for it happening as the lone Virginia resident on this podcast. So go ahead.
I voted.
I
voted. Long story short, people are maybe familiar with this sort of battle being waged between states to redraw congressional district maps in advance of the midterm elections. And this happens regularly. Different states have different timelines at which they consider doing this, but oftentimes it's in response to census results where a state may lose a congressional seat or pick up a congressional seat or two based on population shifts. And so you have to redraw the maps to determine how you kind of puzzle piece those seats into your state. And most Americans today are probably somewhat familiar with the concept of gerrymandering, which is literally, there was a politician 200 years ago whose last name was Jerry, and he was the person to come up with this. And he drew a congressional map that looked like a salamander. And that's why it's called a gerrymander. And the idea is that you draw the map to the political advantage of the party in power.
Interesting.
As opposed to just sort of like naturally kind of like finding the populations and letting the politics lay where they might. And so every state does this, all political parties do this, and they've been doing it for a very, very long time. So in advance of the midterm elections, several states took up the project of doing this. Other states declined to do so. And then you had Virginia, which took a pretty unique approach to this. They started a political messaging campaign that said President Trump has demanded that his MAGA acolytes in states all around the country redraw their congressional maps in order to deliver him the Congress he needs to enact his extreme MAGA agenda. We, Virginia, have to stand up to Donald Trump. We are going to gerrymander our seats to privilege the Democratic Party for the explicit purposes of taking seats away from Republicans and giving them to Democrats in order to thwart Donald Trump.
And this is not state level Congress. This is congressional national seats.
Yes, houses of Congress. That's right. Yes. So it's wild. I think it's unprecedented. And they even went so far as to say it's only for this cycle. We're going to have this highly partisan map that takes Virginia, I think I have this right, from having 6 Democratic seats and 4 Republican seats to 10 Democratic seats and 0 or 1 Republican.
10 to 1 is what I saw. Yeah.
And that's what they did. It passed.
So basically, is it all of Northern Virginia and Charlottesville Are those the main places that
Honestly,
tip
man,
scale?
yeah, Virginia is such a crazy state in so many ways. If you look at Virginia on a map, you might not notice at first, but it's kind of shaped like a shoe. And as it slopes down into the toe, the southwesternmost point of Virginia is further west than Detroit, Michigan. All right.
Wow.
Just to give you a sense of like Virginia. That's the size and scale that we're talking about here. But this election and most elections are almost entirely dominated by results from Fairfax, which is the inner suburb right outside of Washington, D.C., one of the wealthiest, most highly educated, and most liberal places in America. It's literally college professors, think tank nerds like me. You have defense contractors, so many lawyers, so many lobbyists. It's literally it's a few 100,000 people. I think it's 400,000 people, maybe more, who live off of the federal government like leeches. And so the entire rest of the state is more or less dominated by the political preferences of this tiny little dot up near Washington, D.C. And it creates a real cultural problem. And now the way they've drawn these maps, you have people being represented by members of Congress who live like 3 hours away from them, which might not be unusual in a big like a plain state. You know, maybe if you're in South Dakota where they have one or two congressmen, you can understand why you'd have to drive 3 hours.
I was going to say one or two people.
Yeah, it's nothing but cows in between. But in Virginia, that's not the case. As we talked about, they have 10 or 11 seats, and it's just purely partisan. So anyway, that won. And it actually won by a smaller amount than Kamala Harris won the state of Virginia in 2024. And there's a lot of griping about all the politics of that. But anyway, that's what happened.
I was happy to see Jonathan Falwell come out hard against it. You know, he hasn't done a lot of that, you know, since he's been the pastor of Thomas Road.
And didn't a judge put an injunction on this to at least?
Yeah, what happened with that? I read that headline.
Lawsuits immediately. There's a guy at Center for Renewing America named, people may know, Ken Cuccinelli. He actually ran for governor of Virginia, and he was the attorney general here. And he's been doing a lot of very astute legal analysis of all of this. And his contention is that there are legitimate legal grounds on which to challenge the way this whole process went down. Fairly technical things like what Virginia state statute says about the timing of elections like this and kind of the order of operations you have to go in and whether some of that stuff was violated. And it could be going all the way to the Supreme Court to determine if the whole partisan nature of this, and as explicit as Virginia was about that, is actually a violation of the Voting Rights Act.
So Tietzel, I have a question for you. It was within the last 2 or 3 months, Indiana and Indiana Republicans had a chance to effectively gerrymander some districts in their favor that would favor Republicans. And the legislature voted not to do that because they argued that it would basically be breaking a precious seal around things you just don't do in the name of politics. In hindsight, I'm just curious, given your kind of realpolitik perspective, like, how are you looking at what the Democrats did from what the Republicans refused to do? And the reason I ask is, like, in an ideal world, like, I agree with what the Indiana Republicans did. Like, I think that's an honorable thing to do. The problem is we're not living in the honorable world. We're not living in the ideal world. And so help us understand, like, your own understanding of, like, how much pure political power should we be comfortable exercising when it's not pretty, and it's like, no, I'm doing this to rig the system to favor my team.
And Teets, let me just tag something to that because it's in line with this. I've seen a lot of people coming out on social media, talking heads like, this is why Republicans lose, because they're not willing to do the things like this, and Democrats are willing to do it. So,
and can we, before Tietzel goes here, like, we need to acknowledge a massive tension right here, right?
Yep.
Like, I don't want to come across as though we should just be pure utilitarians
right,
and shirk all the principles just to get the win. But at the same time, it seems like we are entering a new political climate where all of those old rules are just like playing by different rules at this point.
Yeah, as Christians, though, we have to be so careful in that conversation because for us, the ends don't justify the means.
Right.
But I don't know the ethics of it. I mean, that's debatable, right? The ethics of it. I know it's illegal, and they find the legal loophole. That's another story.
But Tietzel, give us your high-minded analysis on the realpolitik of this.
Yeah, well, this is why Republicans.
There it is. There's the high-minded analysis.
No, I recently
not wrong.
We recently did a staff retreat for the team at Center for Renewing America. This is a few months ago, and I asked my team to watch the Lincoln film, where Daniel Day-Lewis plays Lincoln. Came out 5 years ago, maybe.
Great. It was longer. It's probably 10, 12 years ago.
Maybe 10 years ago. It's an unbelievable film, truly a masterpiece. Maybe one of the best films of the 21st century. And the reason I asked them to watch it is because it perfectly captures the real politic of Lincoln and emancipation in the Civil War, where this guy that we all think of as, if not the American president, top two, right? It's Lincoln and Washington, right? I have a pillow. Look,
and Trump for Tietzel's list, but go ahead. Yeah.
But I don't have a Trump pillow, but I have a Lincoln pillow. And
you have a My Pillow though.
And we don't have a big, beautiful monument to the president yet. Someday we will, but we do. If you go to the National Mall, you can see it. There's this big. It's called the Lincoln Monument, and and a lot of people go there. 1963, Abraham Lincoln gave a speech in front of it. It was a big deal. The reason
1863.
No, 19. I'm sorry, Abraham Lincoln. Martin Luther King Jr. gave a
okay, there we go.
Yeah, in front of it. I was like, I think he had been dead for about a century.
I was doing the math. I was like, hold on, what have I been told?
So why is Lincoln revered in this way?
Yeah.
Well, because we think of Lincoln as the guy who kept the country together and ended slavery. These incredible accomplishments. And then you watch this film, which is true to history, and you realize the politics that was involved in everything that he achieved. The lying, the bribing, the twisting of arms, the promising of push government jobs to the family members of people whose votes you needed. I mean, at the end of the film, there's a quote. I don't have it with me, but it's something along the lines of the single greatest, most important piece of legislation in the history of mankind passed through a series of lies and outright deceits. And that is politics. It's always been politics. It was politics then, it's politics now. There's no world ever where that hasn't been politics.
And could we something like so fascinating to me, because there's a book that I read within the last couple of months. You may want to read it after this conversation, called Natural Law Republicanism by a scholar named Michael Hawley. And he basically argues that for all practical purposes, the history of political philosophy can basically break along the traditions of Cicero or Machiavelli. And he says, Cicero is the natural lawyer, cosmic justice. He contrasts that with Machiavelli, where it's
cloak and dagger,
about high-minded public justice. It's about the raw exercise of power for just ends.
Yeah, that's right.
But what he ends up doing is kind of saying at the end of it, the American project is kind of a synthesis between the two.
Yeah. There's a guy, Plutarch, that people may have read in school. And Plutarch wrote these, he calls them the lives. And they're basically biographies of people who were highly revered by the ancient Romans. And people like Brutus, who murders Caesar out of devotion for the Roman Republic. And Plutarch's basically, his biography of Brutus basically asks, was he a statesman? Did he do the right thing, murdering his friend for the high-minded ideals of the Roman Republic? And Plutarch ends by saying, no, he wasn't. Not because he murdered his friend, but because we lost the Republic anyway. The fault was that he didn't choose a successful path to get the outcome that he desired, not that he murdered his friend. So, like, we're talking about questions that have been around for thousands of years. And I think it's really valuable to just stop acting like politics today is somehow any different than what politics has always been.
And that was going to be my point, which is every individual, including politicians, are interested in themselves. They have their own self-interest in mind. There are, there's idealists and there are true servants that want to represent the people. But at the end of the day, the point you're making, Tietzel, and the reason why Lincoln and his cabinet were able to get things done is because they realized that people are moved by personal interest. And if they're getting their back scratched, they may scratch yours back. And that is politics. And for those who haven't watched the movie, or they have and you want to go deeper into this, it's based off of the book Team of Rivals, which is incredible. And it talks about how Lincoln pulled together a cabinet full of people who did not like him, who were politically on different sides of the fence. And he learned and knew how to leverage them to get things done. And it's pretty fascinating. But do you think there's a domino effect on this gerrymandering conversation, Teets? Do you think any state decides to counteract this?
Well, it's pretty late in the game at this point. Texas went through an exercise of rewriting their maps. That took up a lot of oxygen. As Andrew mentioned, Indiana's chose not to. Other states have done a few things. I think we're now at a point where most of it has basically been resolved, and it's a wash. Most people view it as basically a political wash, how it all turns out.
To me, I think this is kind of inevitable as America further balkanizes between right and left. Red states are going to get redder, blue states are going to get bluer, and I think you're necessarily going to see the political apparatuses of those states take actions to more likely secure the outcomes they want. And again, like,
I agree with that.
I feel the tension here. Like, I can't say that I like that, but you have to acknowledge that's the world you now live in. And as Tietzel rightly said, this is not a new conversation at all.
Can I read this quote? I found it. This is it's from Thaddeus Stevens, who's the senator who goes through this. The greatest measure of the 19th century, referring to the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, the greatest measure of the 19th century, passed by corruption, aided and abetted by the purest man in America.
Wow. Aided and abetted. That's interesting.
Yeah, and that nostalgia of the past, too, where we act like, the founding fathers were all these, like, kumbaya, perfect men, and history of it. I'm exaggerating, but there's always that nostalgia of the past.
Well, right? Andrew had talked about this, right?
Different than if you don't know your history.
What's the goal of politics, right? In a fallen world, what's the goal of politics? What are we trying to do? And say again, Andrew?
It's restraining evil, right? We all think there's this kind of quasi-utopian, lingering inside of all of us that we're going to affect as much good as we possibly can. Well, that sounds great until your utopianism meets reality, and you realize, actually, no. The bulk of my time is going to be spent stopping the bad stuff from happening.
And this is where I'm somewhat open to the idea of countermeasures in the same way, because if you truly believe that progressivism is evil, that it is insidious in bringing about rot in the culture and in communities, then things that would halt that progress or even push back that progress, I think have to be worth talking about. But it's not easy. Dean said this. This is Christians have to really work through this.
Is Reed trying to establish a just war theory for gerrymandering?
The public case for gerrymandering. Okay, let's talk about something that's pretty clear-cut bad that just came out recently. And somebody's going to have to fill the blanks in on this for me. I don't have the whole story completely understood. But apparently, the whole Charlottesville KKK stuff that was going on, all the, that people tried to pin on Trump saying good people on both sides, right? Which was a hoax. He wasn't saying that the KKK people were good people. Apparently Democrats were funding people who were in.
It's all timer. Yeah.
So
and back to my usual. Back to my usual direction I go. Pretend for a moment that it was like Turning Point USA that was doing that. It would be the media scandal of the century.
Say that TPUSA was funding Antifa doing stuff. That's what this would be.
No, literally. Have you seen the Alex Jones tweet?
Yes.
He literally says that the Unite the Right rally was a false flag operation funded by the SPLC.
And he was right.
He was right.
Y'all, Alex Jones keeps getting proved right way too often.
Give the
Isn't he
background
the Connecticut shooting guy, though? I mean, get out of here.
I'm putting my tinfoil on.
But we got to get the background. Effectively, what was happening is the Southern Poverty Law Center, which exists to combat racism, was quietly funding extremism that was causing racism to flare up that they could then combat and protest against.
And say, look at those bad guys.
Those horrible racists over there. So,
supply and demand.
The memes have been banger out of this, and I gotta say, National Review. Sorry, Tietzel, I know that you're offended by this. National Review had a headline that read this: SPLC indicted for gain-of-function research into racism.
I love
that.
Which
is one of the best headlines I've read in a long time.
That's really good.
Wow.
It's not really. We don't really see this naturally occurring. So how can we create this in a lab?
It's a good little COVID NIH joke there. I like that.
Let's go back in time. Hands up, don't shoot. That was a hoax.
That was
awesome. It was a hoax.
Right? You can keep going on so many
but
things.
Think about how much leverage the left has tried to pull out of this against Trump, especially the first term. This was a big thing, right?
No, this is important, Eric. Thank you for pointing. Like, the SPLC is not just some random think tank that produces reports. They are like the epicenter of the left's mission to deem and dictate anything they don't like racist. And they provide legitimacy to other entities who then make decisions to ostracize and marginalize things that they don't like. For example, Amazon.com, when they choose to ban something like Ryan Anderson's book, could go to a so-called third-party authoritative objective source like the SPLC and say, see, they call this transphobic. Therefore, we have no choice but to do.
They're like an accrediting agency.
Yes.
That's all that it is.
Exactly.
And let's be very clear. In the past, their actions and labeling of groups as hate groups has led to violence against these institutions. The Family Research Council, where Eric and I have friends who work there, literally a guy entered the building with a bunch of Chick-fil-A sandwiches to engage in mass murder because the SPLC had listed them on their website as incubators in a hate group.
Yeah. And this story should be the front page news in every outlet in America. It's that big of a deal.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I was. Dean, that's right. It won't make any major news, like the mainstream news, maybe CBS News, maybe Barry Weiss, and then we'll cover it. But this is not going to be on the headlines.
I will say that night the New York Times did have a piece on it, but it was like one story, 4-minute column, not overly long. I'd be interested to know how much more is being dedicated to coverage of this. But
more people are talking about Mike Vrabel and his girlfriend, the Patriots head coach than they are.
Don't deflect, Dean. Don't deflect.
That's right.
Also, legitimately, that was going to be what caught my eye.
Well,
good
segue,
you're not
people.
Me because of your Mormon coach for the Chiefs. So, yeah.
Oh, hey,
wow,
he only has one spouse
that you know of. All right, let's move into everybody's favorite segment, including Tietzel's. What caught my eye? Let's go with the mayor.
I saw this headline. I saw this poll from Fox about how Fox News shows Americans prefer Democrats to Republicans on the economy for the first time since 2010.
No way.
Fox News poll. The golden age, baby.
Andrew, how is your stock portfolio doing?
He sweats that.
Doing pretty great, man. Thanks for asking.
How many times a day do you check it?
It's all recovered, man.
Andrew, I told you not to jump off the building, man. I told you.
We're good.
How about
man.
that poll?
Hey, you keep holding,
What's y'all's first reaction to that poll?
With your head, not your gut.
Dean, honestly, I don't understand in what way. That's the thing I don't. When I hear people say that I wish I could go ask the respondents, explain to me exactly economically what
Why
you
are
think
the
the
way
left.
you are?
Yeah. Why are you this way? Why are you gay?
Oh, you beat me to it. I had it in my head.
um, it, that's my question. My question is in what way? Show me the economic policy that's benefiting you.
Yeah.
Unless you're on welfare, what's the economic policy that's benefiting you? Sorry, I'm all right. All right.
Gas prices, I don't know.
All right, let's Teeks, what about you?
All right, so the NFL draft is tonight, otherwise known as the road to the Chiefs' next Super Bowl victory. And by the time people listen to this, it will have already happened. It's tonight. We're going to drop this tomorrow morning. So I just thought I'd run through real quick. This is how the first 10 picks are going to go.
Oh, okay.
And
Here we go. Here we go.
listeners can hold me accountable for my predictions. Ready? Here we go. Real quick. Las Vegas Raiders, number 1, Fernando Mendoza, quarterback from the University of Indiana.
Are we high on Mendoza? We think he's going to be legit?
No, I don't think
Okay.
so.
Are you going Reese too?
David Bailey to the Jets. I'm going with David Bailey to the Jets. Yep. I think the Arizona Cardinals might trade out of number 3, but whether or not they do, Arvell Reese will be the 3rd pick.
Okay.
It may not be to Arizona, but I think he'll be number 3. The Titans take Jeremiah Love, running back out of Notre Dame.
For those of you not on YouTube, Andrew is reading a book right now.
Adrian just picked a book up off the shelf.
The New York Giants have 2 picks in the top 10. They used their first one. Some of it is a surprise. I think they're going to take Caleb Downs, the safety out of Ohio State, a little earlier than people might have expected. Cleveland needs a lot of help in a lot of places. They're going to take a tackle you build from the trenches, Francis Mauigoa.
Mauigoa. Go Canes. Mauigoa.
Oh, Mauigoa. Thank you, Dean. Washington, Sonny Styles, linebacker out of Ohio State, goes to the former Redskins. The New Orleans Saints need a second wide receiver. They're going to take Carnell Tate out of Ohio State. A lot of Ohio State talent.
Now, we're going to get one SEC player in here. I mean, good grief, Reed.
And then my Kansas City Chiefs get the guy they have targeted from the
that was the whole reason. He wanted to get to number 10.
Ruben Bain. The edge with short T-Rex arms.
Best player in the draft.
Great. Thank you, sir. And then the Giants finish it out. At number 10, they get a wide receiver, Jordan Tyson out of Arizona State.
2 Canes in the top 10. I love it.
We should have had. We should in post production have NFL music behind that. Yeah, reads that
Poor
out.
Walker, man. That was like his worst 2 minutes of his life.
I'm not getting that time back in my life.
That was revenge.
Andrew, you back with us?
I'm back with you. Reed, what caught your eye? Let's change the subject.
That was peaceful revenge for you talking about French.
That's true. That's true. Here's what caught my eye. Stanford paid 35,000 people to quit Facebook and Instagram for 6 weeks. Their depression dropped, anxiety dropped, happiness went up. Women under 25 on Instagram saw the biggest gains. We continue to see data pouring in about the effects of social media and a lot of online behavior, especially for women. Something to keep an eye on for those of us with parents with girls, with children, period, but with girls especially. Just more and more studies, I think, are pointing to the fact that I think we'll look back one day and be like, man, we were putting some dangerous tools in our kids' hands. Andrew, what about you? What caught your eye?
All right, so we are in the 250th year of this glorious country.
Yes.
And there's no better person to pontificate and opine on the glory of this country than one Justice Clarence Thomas.
Oh, yeah. Good call.
All right, so Clarence Thomas gave kind of a rare public address last week at the University of Texas, where he spent the entire address talking about the virtues of the Declaration of the Independence. He used this great phrase. He said, the Constitution is the means, the Declaration is the ends, which he means that the Constitution is there as a legal apparatus, but why is it there? It's there to protect the ends, and the ends of our experiment with government is the protection of natural rights, life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. It was a glorious speech. I sincerely recommend taking the time to either listen to it or read it. But then the other thing that really stood out to me about this speech is that he took a hard pivot towards the end and then addressed why progressivism is actually incompatible with the Declaration of Independence. And he said that figures like Woodrow Wilson, verbatim, he says, we're architects of new first principles. And those
first principles. Wow, I like that line.
With the originating vision of the Declaration of Independence. And so that's actually what caught the headlines was that you had a sitting Supreme Court justice absolutely smoke progressivism with this ultra-based speech on the Declaration.
Wow.
In Austin. In Austin. Austin is the Wheaton of the Southwest.
Honestly, guys, I think to me, Marco Rubio's speech at earlier this year at the Munich Security Conference is an instant classic in American civics. And I think Clarence Thomas's address that he offered last week is a classic. So we've had some real bangers.
That's awesome. Yeah, go check that out for sure.
That's great.
Conservatism. All right, everybody, thank you for tuning into this episode of The Bully Pulpit. As always, share an episode with a friend, leave us a rating and review, and remember always, if men were angels, no podcast would be necessary.
Love you, Wheaton.